what do they believe about Jesus?
I wish there was a simple answer to that. A lot of these guys would say they believe Jesus is a Messiah and that they hold to the authority of the New Testament. The other ones, I got to tell you, Mike, unless they're trying to prove Jesus looked like them, you don't hear a lot about Jesus. The main time you hear about Jesus is when they go to Revelation chapter 1 and try to show from the description of his majesty and glory that it's actually a description of his ethnicity. So they don't even talk about how this is really a description of Jesus' deity.
Yeah.
Because most of them don't believe Jesus is God, by the way.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. They'll say if it doesn't matter, then why do all your churches have pictures of white Jesus in them?
My church doesn't have a picture of a white Jesus in it, so
I'm just saying that's the kind of thing they would say in response. Yeah. Oh, now it doesn't matter. Now it doesn't matter. Now that we're coming into knowledge of who we are, all of a sudden the white Christians tell us it doesn't matter. But for generations, we've opened up our Bible and seen a guy that looks like you. It seemed to matter then. You see what I'm saying?
I get that, except that as long as I've been a Christian, I never thought Jesus was white, ever. As long as I've been a Christian, I never thought Jesus was white, ever. And I have very little respect for Renaissance artists and their theology. So personally, it's just like, yeah, you're just making stuff up about me. I don't know what you're doing. But Jesus was Jewish. He's Middle Eastern. But okay, Revelation 1:14 says the hairs and explain to us how they use it and how you'd respond to it if you would. The hairs of his head were white, like white wool, like snow. His eyes were like a flame of fire. His feet were like burnished bronze, refined in a furnace, and his voice was like the roar of many waters. And then I guess at the end of verse 16, it says his face was like the sun shining in full strength.
So I like the ESV. So a lot of them use the KJV, and just by way of comparison, I'll look at it so you guys can see what that says as well.
Sure.
So you can see.
Give me just a sec here.
White like wool. They'll say, who's the only people who have woolly hair on this planet? They'll say the so-called black man. But of course, notice what it says right after it, as white as snow. So obviously, it's talking about texture, because it's like your mama's so fat. How fat is she? They burned in a furnace. It's actually kind of a fascinating thing, because when you look at it, it doesn't say as if they were burnt.
Here, let's see. You're reading from the ESV.
That was a KJV, but I'm going to go back to the ESV. ESV says
the King James has as if refined in a furnace. Oh no, I'm sorry. That's New King James.
No, that's the ESV. Yeah.
Okay.
Let me show you I'll show you what it has. The KJV says as if they burned in a furnace, but it's still fine, because this burn, Mike, it's a verb, of course. It's in the perfect tense, passive. It's participle, plural, nominative, masculine. And here's the point about saying all that. This is kind of an action being done unto it. And here's the thing: it's not a finished or completed action. It's not done yet. It's not a finished or completed action. It's not done yet. It's not done yet. It's not done yet.
I want to give all the praises and the honor to Yahweh Bahashem, Yahweh Shai Bahashem, Ruach HaKodash, and double honors to the elder apostles and the elder bishops of Great Millstone. Also, sincere shalom to you other elders, brethren, you few sisters, and you followers of the truth. I'm going to go with a video that I came across. Well, actually, Apostle Tahar video, Elders in Transit 3, posted on Vocab Thinks Jesus is a White Man, ha ha ha. So I said, well, let me go to this man's channel. I believe it's Mike Winger, and he even admits that he knew Jesus wasn't white. So that tells you there's an issue there. If you knew Jesus wasn't white, and he claims he don't have it up in his white church, or whatever these white churches, these churches who don't have Jesus up in their church, but in our hoods, so to speak, in our communities, and our so-called black churches, we had white Jesus. I remember as a young man, they had me painting white Jesus. They gave him coloring books of white Jesus. Everything was white. So this guy Mike Winger understands that Jesus wasn't white. So now we have to understand that somebody is lying. So now that we're coming into the truth, as vocab say, they say when they come into the truth, then all of a sudden, see, what he tries to does is give the answer of what we would say to cover the contradiction, so to speak. But it doesn't matter, because what we're saying is telling the truth. Somebody's lying. And this guy, Mike Winger, admitted he doesn't believe in Renaissance art. But how dare he looks like a Negro? That's the problem that these people have. That's the problem that our people have. They'd rather look like an Arab than like one of us. And some of the Arabs are dark as us. So I don't get that part either. But anyway, I didn't get to watch the whole video, but as soon as I saw it, I said I'm going to go raw on it. Because vocab flopped on this one, and everything he said, he flopped on it. He made excuses of what it was talking about. It had nothing to do with his. They both said it had nothing to do with his skin complexion. All right, Revelation 1:1. The revelation of Jesus Christ, Yahushua, which God gave unto him to shew unto his servants things which must shortly come to pass. And he sent and signified it by the angel unto his servant John, who bare record of the word of God and of the testimony of Jesus Christ, we say Yahushua, and of all the things that he saw. So this telling you, if it wasn't meant for his complexion to be in there, and then they try to go on and say it's allegoric and everything else, come on, man. You can't get this one. You can't get around that one. Okay, so it says, let's go to 14, and we'll go to some of his the translations. He said he likes the ESV. See, that's the problem when you can pick what you like, but let's go there. Let's go to Revelation 1:14. It says, his hairs were white like wool, as white as snow. So vocab, I believe he said, I had to go back in the tape, but I believe he said that was just describing the woolliness of his hair. No, it was describing the texture and what the color of his hair looked like. It says white like wool, as white as snow. It's hard for them to believe that Jesus was a so-called black man. This is giving them a big fit. Now, we don't sit up here and go into the platforms and do these interviews on Christians and why Christians are believing in this and what. Look, you just keep believing in Christianity. Everybody's waking up to the madness. Everybody know that Christianity was a lie. Okay? Anyway, and I got these images going in showing what polished brass actually looked like. Okay? And his feet was like unto fine brass, right? When you look at fine brass, as if they had burned in a furnace. Now, when you go to the blue letter, when you go to burned, they happen to put glowing. How do you get glowing out of something burned past tense? But anyway, let's say for the argument, unto fine brass, as if they burned in a furnace. Look at these images. The definition they have here is some metal like gold, if not more precious. See how they made brass was never originally a gold color anyway. It was more of a darkish tint. And then when it burned, when you deal with fine brass, all you gotta do is Google it. When you deal with fine brass is when you're dealing with like our skin, it's fined, okay? It's completed, right? It's darker, and you can look this stuff up. Fine brass. When you look at brass, it's more like they say more like a copper. But when you look at fine brass is dark, okay? Even in the definition where it says burning, glowing, when you look it up, it's still showing, you can Google it, Google these images. It's still showing to be darker, right? The Amplified Bible, I don't know what this is. His feet was like burnished, white hot in bronze. Where did he get that from? See that? See how they just make it up? Anyway, fine bronze. They say fine bronze, but look at fine bronze. I typed it all in. Look at these images. Bronze glowing. Look at these images. They're not showing. Some of them are showing like a lighter. You got to get the truth out of the lie. But the majority of the images show them as being dark. Burnished brass. Dark, burnished brass. Okay, burnished brass. These are all dark colors. One definition, one of them says frankincense colored or something like that. The literal standard version says frankincense colored. Okay, burnt. Okay, in G44 4448 says to burn with fire, to set fire, to kindle, to burn with fire, to be incensed, indignant. So when you look at to be incensed, what happens when you light an incense? Right, it glows and then it blackens. Right. Melted by fire and purged of dross. These are the definitions they have in the blue letter. Okay. So I just wanted to touch on that. His feet like a burnished brass, fine brass. And when you go into these definitions, and when you go look this stuff up, burnished brass obviously is black, dark. Fine brass, believe it or not, is dark. You can get the darkest penny, right, and make it and burn it and refine it. It will turn dark. Okay. So when you see fine brass, it's not really even the color of a penny. It's darker than that, right? And it only makes sense. Even the average white person knows that Jesus was not a white man. This guy admitted it, but he just won't admit. When you look at the wool, dealing with wool, that means hair of the Negroes in the Old English. Even when you go to Phineas, the grandson, I believe the grandson of Aaron, right? The son of Aaron. When you look up his definition in the blue letter, his definition is the mouth of brass, which means the Egyptian Negro, right? So everybody knows it. Let's go to Daniel 10:5. Okay, it says, "Then I lifted up my eyes and looked, and behold, a certain man clothed in linen, whose loins were girded with fine gold of Uphaz," right? Fine gold of Uphaz. His body also was like the beryl, and his face as the appearance of lightning, right? And his eyes were as lamps of fire. So you might see here it says face was the appearance of lightning. This is how he saw him. Okay. With the glow, like David with the glow. Okay. And his arms and his feet like unto color to polished brass. There we go with that polished brass again. Okay, let me go down to polished brass. Let's see what it says about polished brass. What does that say? Okay, so we can clearly see that doing burnished, polished. Okay, burnished, polished. So when you see like in color, it means burnished, polished. So, this is why you got to go through the words, and sometimes with this blue letter, it looks like they've just been putting words in there just to put them in there, because if it means the color of polished brass, how can you actually look at the word color and call it the word eye, or say it's the eye, or the physical eye, like in color, okay? And then showing mental qualities, but then it says like unto color of polished brass. And when you go to polished brass, let me go back here. Let's go back to the polished brass, and his arms was like the feet, and his feet was like unto color to polished brass, right? So what does his feet have to do with his eyes? Well, basically, when you're dealing with polished brass, you're dealing with the color of his complexion. Okay, and that's pretty much it. I mean, this is what we see with these guys. They go back and forth with this thing, dealing with the color of the one you call Jesus, Yahushua. And this is the sickness of, as he said, Renaissance art. He even admitted Renaissance art is a travesty and it was a cover-up. And what would have been the problem if he didn't look like us, and he did look like somewhat Middle Eastern with a lighter complexion? What would have been the problem with leaving that complexion up? Why did they have such a problem with the complexions, the art? But when you go to the images before Renaissance art, they didn't show anybody. Some of them looked at lighter, brownish, because we come in all complexions, by the way. But then you would have seen mostly of them, the majority of those images were so-called black people. So that's why they had to do what you call iconoclasm, image destruction. So as we see, vocab is flopped again. We proved through the scriptures that what burnished bronze is, you can't take that and make it some allegory or whatever he tried to say. It just ain't working, man. You know, we know what it is. And, you know, for the people who are hated the most on the planet, who were brought here to, you know, in our condition, why would these people really want us to know our heritage and our history? That would be like saying everything they were taught was a lie, right? And they don't want to accept that. You got to know they wouldn't accept that.